So yeah, back to this. So in first order of business, I wanted to see a couple of slides that I have prepared for the second year about dynamic range control. It's like there is a book that I'm following that is really cool that I discussed with you very slightly about this guy. It's called Jason Corey, and it's called Audio Production and Critical Listen and Technical Ear Training. And it's kind of like, imagine this lecture that I prepared for the second year is a lecture about compression, but it's a lecture about compression ignoring all the things that I think are important for you. I don't think I have covered this with you, right? And please, last week we saw something called, last lecture we had, we saw a lecture called Frequency Selective Dynamics, and we discussed masking curves. And I remember I was like, okay, next lecture I want to touch the topics that I have here in the dynamic range control from Jason Corey. And the other thing that I want to touch about is tape and saturation. I have a mix that I want to discuss with you. That it kind of like, I mean, something that happened last week where I was mixing something and I made a couple of decisions that I thought, fuck, I really want to share these decisions with the guys because I think they're important and it's really funny what happened. I'll explain you when we get there. But before I go into all of this, I wanted to ask you, is there any topic that it's pressing for you, that for you it's important to discuss?
This one.
The one what?
About dynamic range control.
Great. Wow. That's amazing. I mean, I'm very, very happy for that. So it's a great synchronization. If there are any topics, we have kind of like 4 lectures left together. On Thursday, we will have a lecture. And then on Friday, you will come to this extra event. Or if you come. If you don't come, it's okay. There is this extra event. And then next week we have a couple. So if you want to propose me a topic, if you want to do something in particular, if you want to meet in DTH to do something, whatever, just propose me, because this ending is a little bit open and I can change it. All right, so that's amazing. And the second thing I want to discuss with you, like I told you, is I'm going to open a mix that I was doing last week. And there is a couple of things that I think are important from that mix that are going to be cool to discuss. So, okay. And by the way, in case you want, I can invite you as guests. Today at 5, the lecture that I'm going to have, it will be about mastering with the second year. You guys had a lecture with me about mastering, but this is like an augmented version, so I'm just telling you, whatever. There will be a lecture about mastering, and this, you don't have to see this, but it's going to be there.
It will be online?
Yeah, it would be online, and
okay.
the link is gonna be in the Starosti chat because there's like Grisha and,
okay.
So if you want to join, just jump in and get out anytime you want. Like it's gonna happen. It's gonna be a pure lecture about mastering alone. Okay, so let me just leave this open here. Music projects. This is in some obscure place. The bets. I will discuss this when I get there. The material that I'm gonna cover, I think I will go around it quite quickly because I mean I don't want to repeat things that you already know. We have discussed compression so much, but I want to leave this open. Wait, where are you? The bets, давай. Search the bets. Wait. The bets. Давай, give me my files. It's in my hard. Well, whatever. I'll let me start and then I'll check it out. It should be around here, but I don't know why he's not finding it. And it's not. Yeah, maybe it is in my hard drive. Let me connect it. I want to be prepared for when we get there. So yeah, and on some great personal news, I'm going 3 weeks to the south soon, so I fucking need that holidays. I am
nice.
Going to yes.
Sochi again?
No, we go to Anapa. There is a situation that a family of us, like the cousin of Anya, he has 3 kids, and so he's taking his 3 kids to the south with his wife, and so we're gonna and then he's going with another friend with 2 more kids, so they are 5 kids, and we are taking two and a little grape that it's inside Anya's belly. So yeah, we're going there with 7 kids, and they're just gonna have a blast there while we don't rest. That's how it's gonna be. So that's how it always goes. But anyways, I'm happy. So yeah, we're gonna go there for 3 weeks. We will drive to Sochi and then make a little little drive from Sochi to Anapa slowly, and then stay in Anapa in some kind of kurort for 3 weeks, and then for 2 weeks, and then come back. All right, let's go. So I'm ready to start. So great. This again. Remember, I have delivered so many lectures of compression, and to be honest with you, like, and I'm really not kidding when I say this, the topic of compression sort of like fall on me fully, that I feel that I have mastered this year, kind of like after so many readings and so many saying things. So, and I believe that this presentation that I'm about to give you contains some aspects that are kind of usually not discussed, and I really did a big effort on removing from this kind of like material everything that I think you guys already know, and focus just on things that you guys don't know. When I mean you guys, I mean y'all, not you two, because this presentation was built for other courses too. But let's go. So why do we compress? To achieve optimal ensemble balance, because it's essential. Well, let me start it in a different way. Sorry, I removed this thing that I said to start. Why do we compress? We want to achieve an optimal ensemble balance to express the musical intention of the artist, and we want to control individual vocals and instruments and amplitudes when we have a recording. Dima, by the way, let's start asking you a question. You have expressed in the past that you're not so fond of using compressors. Can you explain us why? You prefer to do this task with another way, or have you changed your mind?
Give me like 10 seconds.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
In comparison, when I hear like something that was created like good, you know, and have not much compression, but balanced in a way of, you know, like musician balance, or like it's recorded. In comparison, when you to track when everything is brick wall, like you know, sausage and all the stuff, I like feel the first variant more pleasant.
Absolutely.
And because I'm mixing all this stuff, when I hear like uncompressed version of the track, when I do not apply any compression, in some you know parts or of my mind, I feel that is should be done without compression somehow, but I kind of understand that it is not possible just because of the industry standards and because of material that I already have, which I should mix. And this is really hard. Why this theme is interesting to me, and like it's my больная тема, just because of all these feelings. Because like for me, ideal musical piece, it's something like orchestra, which is
it's
dynamically mixed just by the instruments, and by the place, and not with gear and all these modern industry standards. I every time I like play with myself about industry standards and what I like.
No, I agree with you. The issue, you see, like, I guess that I have a good metaphor here for us. Like, imagine that you're a pilot of an airplane, and I don't know why this example always works for me, the pilot of the airplane, but yeah, imagine you're a pilot of an airplane and you say, well, my airplane flies better when all the passengers are less than 60 kilograms. But then you get some kid that is 9 years old, and then you get a fat bastard that it's like 120, and blah blah. And so, I mean, you as a pilot are going to have to pilot the airplane, whatever the amount of people, or so. I think like you a lot. Like, I don't like to manipulate the dynamic range of something. I rather doing this naturally. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, some passengers of our planes are gonna be either super thin or super fat, and that's gonna make a pain in the ass for us. And for this we use compressors, right? Compressors will make everybody look like as if they are 60 kilograms or something. So what I'm trying to say with this is like there is this desire versus reality, and I don't want to be the guy who is telling you, Dima, you have to use compressors. If you don't use compressors, you're a loser. I have kind of said this in the past to you. I remember I was like, no, we had a discussion once, and I was like, oh no, you do use them. It's your choice. Maybe you are the person who is going to change this, and I really believe that this is possible. No, I mean, I really mean it. I'm lately very, very hopeful and dreaming a lot about youth and what it means to be young and what it means to change things. Like, but whatever. Continuing the train of where we are, obviously we have to use them sometimes because
one more thing. I accepted that modern like industry standards that I should use compressors and should use them a lot. Because like the industry works like that. But every time I like trying to find the way to use it less or like things like this.
And today I'm actually going to show you some things that is going to strengthen your feelings. I think you will see like some things about moments when we are compressing that we are really not doing anything, and we just feel that we're compressing when we're really not doing anything. So yeah, so control of individual vocal and instruments amplitudes are necessary for overall balance. Great. When recording spot microphone signals on multiple tracks and mixing those tracks, the engineer has some control over the musical balance of expectant. When you're recording, I mean, he means like what you mean. Like, it's like, isn't it nice that we can just say, okay, the snare sounds too loud in this part. Let me move this mic a little bit back, and then you're doing this control. There is some control on the musical balance and expression when you're recording. The dynamic range describes the difference between the loudness and quietness. Of course, I'm following the book, obviously, so there are some things that are obvious for us. Adjusting fader levels over time can compensate for variations in signal level and maintain consistent perceived loudness. So, I mean, it's perfectly viable and valid to Fender ride the hell out of something instead of compressing. Really, it is valuable. It is analog process. It's just like it's more time consuming. And again, it's outside of this industry standard because people want this like sucking thing that is going on when you compress. Dynamic range controllers such as compressor and expanders adjust levels automatically based on an audio signal level and can be applied to individual tracks, so you don't have to Fender write the things. Obviously, this is what you kind of like are perceiving about the industry standard. Like pop and rock music lead vocals can have a very wide dynamic range from quietest to whisper all in one single song, so this can be hard to balance without compression. Finding, and we discussed this in our little lecture that we had about compression in this course, finding a satisfactory static fader level without compression for a sound source as dynamic as pop vocals is almost impossible. I mean, to the industry standards of nowadays. Use of compression, and again, if I say things that are very obvious, I am just happy to share them from the point of view of another engineer. That's kind of what I feel it's important for me, like when I go through these presentations. Like, use of compression is helpful to getting part of the way of the goal of consistent, intelligible, and musically satisfying levels, especially for tracks with a wide dynamic range. Consistent levels for instruments and vocals help communicate the musical intentions very more. That's very obvious. Dynamic contrast is important to help convey musical emotion. That's super important. Obviously, that's basic stuff. It's the introduction. The application of level control partly depends on the genre, with most classical music recordings not benefiting from active level control as much. This is exactly what you're saying. It's like, you see, and that's really cool to see it from the point of view of a more seasoned or famous engineer or something like that. He's telling you that, like, hey, you know, classical music is barely compressed, or maybe not. It doesn't benefit from it. And at least some amount of the dynamic range control is desirable for most of other genres of music, and a more limited dynamic range is the goal of a pop and rock recording. So this is kind of like how Jason Corey introduced us to this topic. It's sort of like, hey, we compress so we can keep so we can keep the dynamic range in some sort of acceptable level. We can develop static faders, so we can actually serve the industry standard of things that are always audible all the time. And so, and yeah, I mean, and classical music doesn't need this so much, and whatever. It seems like you're gonna end up having to compress. Obviously, when you compress something, you produce a change in timbre, and timbre changes between quiet and loud dynamic levels can help you to maintain the perception of a dynamic range, with a significant increase in the number and strength of higher frequency harmonics as the dynamic level goes from quiet to loud. Because of the Fletcher-Munson curves, obviously when we compress, we are going to exacerbate more higher and mid-range frequencies, because because we hear crying babies better than elephants farting, right? Dynamic range reduction can be taken too far, leaving musical performance lifeless. So when we pull out of the life of something, and you will see now, there's going to be a very good diagrams that are going to follow here, that are going to meditate very deeply about why does something ends up being lifeless when you compress it too much. And you will see it's really cool. It's like it's something connected to how the RMS levels are calculated. You will see in a minute. Compressor and limiters are examples of non-linear processing that often means to sculpt and shade the audio signals in a unique and time-varying way. Dynamic range control can help in the mixing process by smoothing out audio signal levels and adding cohesion to various musical parts of the mix. So that's kind of how he introduces the topic. So this is really cool. And the next part, where the writer goes, it's kind of like, hey, how does detectors work? Like, what's happening in a compressor detector, really? Like, how is it that it can kind of like trigger itself? He doesn't go to the audio electronics angle of it, but he goes a little bit more from the point of view of like, what does it mean that a detector signal can define a threshold, and how can that happen? So dynamic processor works with objective audio signal levels, usually measured in decibels. These guys, again, this is going to be one of those little quirks and little sentences that sound stupid, that don't sound so profound, but I really think they are. Like, the detector, it's detecting. Remember, my rage of all this last like 6 weeks or something has been like, oh my god, a human is who is mixing. Like, I know it sounds absolutely stupid, but I really forgot that a human is mixing. And actually, I don't know if you remember, maybe I told you this already, when Sergey, that you were not there when it happened. Do you remember that man Sergey that was with us in the live sound?
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember if I mentioned this to you. I think I mentioned it to another course, but tell me if I did. The first time he came into the room to see what I was doing, I had a meter in the screen of the cinema, and he told me like, aha, you are mixing looking at the levels. You shouldn't be looking at the levels. You should just be perceiving things like a human being. And I was like, I really, this was before all this revolution that I'm going through of realizing that a human is mixing. And I internally, because I can be, I guess, a little bit arrogant inside of me sometimes, I was like, come on, this guy is like a little bit, like, I mean, I know he's a big pro, but I don't agree with that sentence that I don't have to be looking at the meters. I think that it's okay to look at the meters. But now I understand what he meant. It's like, you cannot mix based on the readings of the meters. You have to mix based on your listening capacities. It's kind of like, I mean, it's sort of like driving only at the speed limit, you see, and then and not feeling you like you know how it feels to drive. And why am I telling you all of this? Because what the threshold of the compressor is, like, the threshold of the compressor is getting triggered by an objective signal, but because of the Fletcher and Munson curves, and because of how humans perceive loudness and a whole bunch of reasons, are what we need really to be compressed is a little bit different than what the detector is looking at. That's exactly what I mean, because there is a mismatch, not a connection between us as humans and the device. And I'm really happy that he says it right away. And I'm telling you, I read this chapter in particular. I read it quite deeply because I really wanted to get into it. And he just starts saying exactly that. It's like the first problem of a compressor is that the compressor has a detector that is objective, and the subject is listening to something that is not objective at all. So, okay, the decibel is a logarithmic scale. It's in a logarithmic scale that correlates, tries to work like the human auditory system interprets changes in loudness, and tries to make it more meaningful in terms of the scale that is being measured. Decibels also scale the range of audible sound levels to a more manageable range. Okay, I mean, this is more like decibel theory. Peak level indicates basically. I mean, look, let's try to play a little bit around this idea. What kind of he's trying to tell you is that the decibel, it's a very much an approximation of how humans hears, but there really is not exactly how a human hears. It's sort of like trying to give a scale of happiness or a scale of hunger. You see, that's a good point. Like a scale of hunger. It's like, how can you measure hunger? Well, you can say something kind of like how much, like amount of food present in the stomach versus blah 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 versus level of glucose on the blood, and then you reach to some number that represents hunger. But that's really cannot tell me. It doesn't tell me a lot about how hungry Dima is. It tells me something, and I think that's one of the problems of modernity. That people live in this fantasy that we can really measure everything, that there is something like an objective possibility, you know, of measuring something. But whatever, I'm going around the topic, so sorry, I'm going back to it. So, peak level indicates the highest amplitude of a signal at any given time. Great. Well, RMS levels is somewhat like an average level. And now, again, we're going to see a really nice diagram next that is going to tell us a lot of stuff about how these detectors see the signal. RMS level is calculated by squaring the signal, taking the average of some predefined window of time. It's important what you just saw there. RMS level is calculated by squaring the signal, so you grab the signal to the power of 2, and then grab the average of some predefined window of time, so you choose a time frame, and then you take the square root of that, of all of this. This is really cool, I didn't know this. For sine tones, like, I mean, one of the things that... Pay attention to this. This is absolutely useless and absolutely super interesting. Maybe it will not be useless. I don't know, but I'm of course kidding about this. I just believe that dropping jokes is the best way to keep a lecture moving forward properly. I don't think that anything of this is useless. It's so infinitely interesting. One of the defining characteristics of a sine tone is that, let me read this so I don't fuck it up. The RMS level, it's always 3 decibels below the peak level. Like that, obviously the sine tone, it's always going to have like similar shape and characteristics. So it doesn't matter what's the amplitude or the frequency. Sine tone is always going to have 3 decibels. Like the peak is going to be the RMS is going to be 3 decibels below the peak, basically, or 70.7% of the peak level.
Mazaev told us about this.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's great. I didn't know that at all. I didn't know that until last week, to be honest with you. Like, so that's pretty cool. For more complex audio signals, such as music or speech, the RMS level must be measured directly from a signal and cannot be calculated by subtracting 3 decibels from the peak value. So you see, the author is kind of trying to tell us something about how compressors listen versus us. When a compressor is listening to a sine tone, it has it pretty easy to determine what's the peak level and what's the RMS. But when you're dealing with something as complex as a vocals, that it's changing over time, that it has a peak value that is varying, that it has an RMS that is varying, then it becomes really harder for the compressor to understand when it has to get triggered. Now, we need to introduce a concept. Maybe it's new for you. Maybe not. Maybe Masaev discusses with you. I don't know. But we need to introduce a topic called the crest factor. Have you heard about it before?
Last time.
Let's proceed. Maybe you heard it and you don't know that it's called like that. So the crest factor, this is so fascinating, guys. And I'm so happy that I can deliver this today to you, like this idea. The crest factor is the difference between the RMS and the peak. Now, okay, like, wow, thank you, Leo. That's so amazing. Wow. Now, but wait, let's see how it continues. The RMS value of a sine tone is always 70% of the peak value, which is the same as saying that the RMS is trivial on the peak. This is what we just saw. This is only true for a sine wave. The crest factor is the difference between the peak and the RMS level, and this usually measures in decibels. A sine wave has a crest factor of 3 decibels. The crest factor is what determines how loud something is for humans. Like, the human auditory system is kind of like comparing the average versus the peaks. And this subtraction indicate us the loudness of something. That's pretty cool because, yeah, think about it. Like a little peak that is a tick, like one microscopic unit of sound that lasts for a nanosecond. Like maybe that thing was 700 million decibels, and we will kind of not feel it. Like we will not feel it as loud as as the equipment is measuring. You see, this is kind of what the whole conversation is. You need some development over time for your system to process and to understand how loud that thing really was. And so, for example, a square wave has no crest factor at all. And so, I mean, does it mean that we don't hear it loud? No, it's not true. We do hear it as loud, but it has no variation of dynamic range. The variation of dynamic range occurs when the crest factor changes over time. So our square wave has equal peak and RMS level, so the crest factor is 0. Now, when you start working on a pulse wave, you will start having an RMS. And then you start feeling variation of loudness over time. Like it happens when you hear, well, it's kind of like the waveform starts displaying some sort of dynamic range. That's exactly what I mean. So a pulse wave is similar to a square wave, except that we are shortening the amount of time of the signal at its peak level, and the length of the pulse determines the RMS level, where the shorter pulse will give a lower RMS level and therefore a larger crest factor. RMS can be thought of as a type of signal average, and the terms RMS and average can be used interchangeably. So, loudness is used to describe the perceived level rather than the physical measured sound pressure level, obviously. Perceived loudness is influenced by factors such as power spectrum, this is connected to the Fletcher and Monson, and the crest factor. So the perceived loudness over time is directly correlated to the manipulation to the movements that the crest factor do over time. What a compressor is doing is changing the crest factor. That's exactly what a compressor is. It's changing the average by making everything that is quieter louder. And by manipulating the crest factor, it starts manipulating how we perceive loudness. Dynamic range compression increases the average level, that's what I just said, through a two-stage process involving gain reduction of the loudest peak level, followed by a linear output gain. I mean, linear output gain means that you boost it up a bit depending on how much you reduce the peak. Compressor and limiting reduce the crest factor of an audio signal, making it possible to make an audio signal sound louder, even if its peak level is unchanged. This is so fucking important. And I'm gonna paint it in purple or something. This is really cool. I mean, these are things that we know, but articulating them correctly will make us better sound engineers. Compressor Unlimited can reduce the crest factor of an audio signal, making it possible to make an audio signal louder even if the peak level is unchanged. So you can make something less loud or loud without touching the peak level, because the loudness lives in the crest factor. Now, I remember when I delivered this lecture the first time, I painted this in red because I was not sure that I could explain it. So let me go through it again, and let's see where I can get now. Normalizing an audio signal will not necessarily make a recording sound significantly louder, because engineers typically want to record audio signals so the peak levels are as close as possible as 0 dBFS. Let's for a moment go to here. Wait, audio normalization. I'm gonna be honest with you, like I cannot define audio normalization. I want to read a little bit about it for a second. Constant amount of gain to another recording to bring the amplitude to a target level. Okay. It's simply just a transposal. That's what I imagined, but I just didn't want it to be sure. I just didn't want it to fuck it up. The same amount of gain applying across the entire recording. So it's kind of like I have something that it was like, let's say that I have a waveform that was minus 6 dB in its peak, and in its you see, here it's really cool. Now that we start using the concept of the crest factor, like it was minus 6 dBs in the peak, and the what's the name? The RMS was, let's say, minus 10. So it has a crest factor of 4 dBs. And then I want to normalize this, so it means that everything gets summed 10 dBs or something like that. You agree with me about the definition of normalization?
Yeah. I imagine this as well.
That's what I imagine too, but I just didn't want it to say something stupid. So let's read this again. When I grab a signal and I sum to everything 10 decibels, for example, it will not, the recording make significantly louder. Well, firstly, because you're not changing the crest factor when you do that. You see what I mean? I mean, if you everything gets transposed to 10 dB up, the crest factor is going to remain being 4 decibels anyways. Do you feel that or not? Or do you still don't understand the importance of
Can you repeat this?
Yeah, I said, like, normalizing an audio signal, this is such a cool idea, guys. Normalizing an audio signal will not necessarily make the recording sound significantly louder. So before we continue, let's not read anymore right now. Let's stop there 1 second. Before we continue, what I said this, because you are not changing the crest factor.
Yeah.
Like you see, if I grab the RMS and the peak and I sum at 10 decibels to it, the crest factor will remain being 4 decibels anyways, or whatever, 3 decibels.
But do you know that normalization can also decrease the gain volume?
Yes. And it would be equally. I mean, the perceived loudness will remain. Just like you will have to turn it up in volume. And man, guys, you know, like it's so cool. There are two options. I'm making a little pause here. Did you felt what I said about the crest factor, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna make a little pause here. Like, either I am extremely stupid or extremely mediocre or extremely, I don't know, shitty and professional, or these concepts really do get a lot of time. And I don't mean time like that you have to wait 10 years. I just mean more like you need to see them and see them and see them and see them and see them. But I mean, I feel so much more in control right now after that week I spent in Fly Sound mixing, because it was the first time where I could understand because it was kind of like, imagine that you spend a week mixing. Imagine that you set up the setup for Park Live and then you spend a week mixing in that setup. It's something that changes your perspective so much, because you understand that 1 decibel or 10 decibels, like, it really doesn't matter. It matters. I mean, it's not that it doesn't matter, it's that is not telling you so much. Because it really, I mean, depends. 1 decibel in a system like that is not the same as 1 decibel in your headphones. You follow what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, that affected very critically how I perceive loudness. And now that I started handling this concept of the crest factor, I'm just going deeper into this rabbit hole and understanding that one thing is that something becomes louder, and one thing is that I turn the knob of the volume knob. Like, these are different things. Like, it will be perceived louder, but another thing is to manipulate the signal so you expand the crest factor, and then the brain is really kind of like, it's sort of like, you see, if you see a very large scorpion or a very little scorpion, anyways what you see is like, that shit is poisonous. Like, your brain doesn't care that it's so large or so small. It will be more intimidated to the very large scorpion, but your brain is going to tell you poisonous. And you see, like, something that has a larger crest factor, your brain is going to interpret it as something more dynamically, like with a larger dynamic range. And so it doesn't matter if it's little or big. I developed this theory, this sentence recently. I don't remember if I told it to you. I was thinking a lot about what it means to have, I mean, because you know something that happens to me a lot. I don't know if it happens the same to you. Something that happens to me a lot is that I'm clipping something that is very quiet. And then my laziness or my Latino spirit of like wanting to be on the beach and not wanting to work kind of like doesn't want to pay attention to that. And it tells me, this like Latino spirit that wants to stay on the beach and doesn't want to work, it tells me something kind of like, oh man, come on, like, it's quiet, so it doesn't matter. And then I've been meditating a lot. Of course, later my Russian, English / American side kicks in. It's like, come on, you Venezuelan lazy fuck, like, let's fix this, you know. And I go and I fix it. But I've been meditating a lot of like what it means, a signal that is quiet but it's clipping. Like, what is the meaning of something like that? And I came to a metaphor, which is like, if I give you, I'm sorry if I told you this metaphor, it's a new metaphor. I developed it like a week ago, but I don't remember if I told it to you or not, or like 2 weeks ago. if I give you a little piece of uranium, like a microscopic piece of uranium, or a big piece of uranium, you're gonna get cancer, kind of, anyways. Like, when you have a quiet signal that is aiming towards clipping, that thing is clipping your ear cells. Anyways, it doesn't matter that it's quiet. This is kind of what I'm trying to say, like about the I hope that you felt this idea. This is kind of what I'm trying to say about the crest factor. It's like, because what your brain interprets is not a decibel thing. It's more like, hey, I perceived that signal along some time. There was a peak and there was an average, and the difference between that peak and the average was huge. It doesn't matter what's the decibel level, but your compressor really cares about that, and that's why we have problems in between us and the gear. Anyways, I hope that this idea fell on you, because for me it's a very important idea and I'm feeling it very strong, and actually my skin just became a little bit like a chicken, you know, like when I felt it. But anyways,
you know, I'm a bit quiet because I'm like thinking too deeply that I cannot talk, because the loudness, you know, the loudness not only in the crest factor, because when you decrease crest factor by compressor and then increasing the whole level of the sound, you like it more. The people like it more. And this is really game of like definitions, you know, because maybe the loudness, it can be only in comparison with something. Something is quiet and something is very loud.
Yes.
And when you like
but check this out. That's exactly what the crest factor is.
Yeah.
It's a comparison of two things. Anyways, that's not in contradiction to what you're saying. Sorry, I'm just adding that.
Okay. And what people like, they don't like, like human like, that it's not loudness, it's something else. Because
it's the expression of quiet versus loud. No, not really, because in the end, all pop songs are just like a sasiska of loudness.
Yeah, and it's loud in comparison to what?
Yeah.
In comparison to other songs that in Spotify or...
I think I'm gonna make here of a bit of a joke in our depressive state of the modern man and modern women. I mean, the modernity. It's loud in comparison to their thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just kidding here in the sense that their head is full of garbage, and then they need something
I think
really loud to shut off that garbage, you know.
The loudness war is actually a war between the tracks, that which track is louder, and that's why all this happened.
Yes, you're right.
And for me, it's kind of a bit depressing, because too, like, man. You know, you can you can do like really good song without all this compression, but you should compress because the other guy will compress this his song as much as you will.
I remember I have a friend of mine who is I don't know if he's still active. I lost track with him. I haven't talked with him like for 10 years or something. I wouldn't say I can call him a friend. He's an acquaintance. And he's a very prolific musician. Like, I mean, this is a guy who has released like 25 albums or something. Like, he's just making music. And one time he made a really nice kind of like Instagram stories about the introduction to the volume knob. You know, he was like introducing this incredible technology, which is called the volume knob, you know, that you can just turn it up if something is not loud and down if something is too loud. And that's maybe everything we need in terms of not having to compress and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You know, if the industry really cares about the artistic part of this sphere of the music, that the industry standard should be not the loofs, which is like, it should be RMS should be like industry standard, and then you accurately manipulate the sound, the dynamic of the track, manipulate with the dynamics of the track to make it like some artistic movements and all this stuff. But it's not possible because like some people just want to get money and they will make his track very loud.
Yeah, that's correct. But yeah, well, anyways, let's go back to this.
Sorry, it was
no. This is a great. I think that this is the best thing that we can do together. Like this kind of like conversations. Like it's the best way. This is actually when we were having this conversation, I thought I want to rename this topic for the next year. I would call this topic audio philosophy. Like that's how I would call it. Like to be honest, like this предмет. Kind of kidding there, but anyways, tell me, Andrucha.
I developed a cheat code phrase through my all work I done, and it sounds like if the record is not good enough, the mixing will not save it, and vice versa. You know, like nothing can really affect badly if the material is so good. You know.
Actually, it's like it's really cool, and I remember like you know about Ilya in the studio, but you don't know so much about Anton. Anton, I mean, maybe I have mentioned a little bit of him to you and stuff, but Anton was really the founder of DTH, like the person who started everything. It's just like he got fucked in life and left the business to us, kind of, and we pay him money at the end of every year, and that's it because he built those rooms and he paid a lot of investments at the beginning and stuff. And Anton is really deep sound guy. He really understands sound so well, and it's really, really powerful audio engineering mind. And he said this thing, which is like, you know that the mix is great when you start listening how much the musician sucks. You know, like the meaning is that you reveal how shitty everybody is, and that's so depressing. I mean, when the song is good, of course this doesn't happen, but it is so true. And well, you see, like Andrucha, about what you just said, we had I don't remember, I mean, I think you were there, but I just don't remember. There was a moment when we had a lecture these are all the lectures that we have done, and there was a moment that we had a lecture which was comping and arrangement, and it was so cool, like that the author spends a lot of time discussing how much arrangement is like a third of the mixing, for sure. It's like, it's so true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if the song is bad, there's nothing that you can do to save it. And in a way, it is very depressing that our job is sort of like to try to save things that are horrible. And yeah, it's just depressing. And all of this because we want to achieve success in a career that is really hard to achieve success. But anyways, I don't know. Let's move on. So we stopped here. We analyzed the first half of this. Normalizing another signal will not necessarily make a recording sound significantly louder and we stopped there. Engineers typically want to record audio signals so that the peak level are as close as possible to 0 dBFS. I really didn't understood that second sentence. Do you guys understand it? Like, I understood how what I told you now about normalization makes sense, but the second half, I don't understand exactly what he means. Now, before you try to guess what it means or try to give it a go, you see, it's really important. Little message here. We need to learn how to read in between the lines that he's telling you that everybody's trying to record as close as 0 dBFS. So remember this. Okay, you want to give it a go? Do you understand what he means by that? Like
the engineer wants to all the tracks should be at the same loudness, like something like this.
You are already near 0, so there is no normalization above 0.
Yeah.
I see now what it means. Okay. Compression and limiting can still make a signal seem louder, even if the peaks are hitting 0 dBFS, obviously. I mean, it's just like something that is very obvious. It is important to learn how to identify the artifacts produced by dynamic range compression and how to recognize the amount of gain change applied in decibels. Great. I mean, that's obvious. We need to learn how to listen to compression. Okay, and then this is kind of like the meditation about detector versus person. You know, that's the meditation that the author taught about detector versus person. And then it moves on to describe like compressors and limiters. In here, of course, in the book, he goes and describes what is threshold, what is, and of course I ignore all of this because we will vomit if I start talking about this again. Compressor and limiters are used to do narration or recording. They attenuate the level of a signal once it reaches or exceeds the threshold level. I left these little basic things. Compressors and expanders are adaptive sound processing. Wait, I remember that there are some useful things here, so I'm going to just read quickly and stop on the useful thing. Sound processing effects that adjust the amount of processing based on the level of the signal. Compressors and expanders are adaptive sound processing effects. Look, this thing, I don't find this sentence trivial. adaptive sound processing effects. I mean, it's obvious for us. We know what that means, but I mean, imagine that you put a imagine that you put a GoPro. This is such a stupid metaphor, but imagine you put a GoPro on the crest of a waveform. I mean, and you follow it like, and this thing is moving so much. And really, remember that the compressor is sort of adapting to that. It's an important thing to remember, and that's where the artifacts comes from. By the way, because the compressor is adapting to that variation that happens over time. Dynamic dynamic processors use methods like RMS or peak level detection to determine if a signal level is blah. Okay. Expanders of gates are a type of dynamic processor that increase dynamic range by attenuating lower amplitude sections of a recording. That's really obvious. Different compressor and limiters have their own unique sound based on factors like signal detection circuit, algorithm, and electrical components. We have discussed this at a large extent. Compressor parameters typically include threshold rate, attack, and great. There are some things, obviously. If I left here something about the threshold, is because I thought that there was something about how he said it that it could be useful for us. As compressor starts to reduce the gain of an input signal as soon as the amplitude of the signal itself or a sidechain goes above the threshold. Nothing new there, nothing else to extract. Attack time. In practice, the attack time can help an engineer define or round off the attack of a percussive sound, obviously, or the beginning of a musical note, obviously. With the proper adjustment of attack time, an engineer can help a pop or rock sound more punchy. Obviously, the release time is the time it takes for a compressor to stop applying gain reduction, even after the audio signal has gone beyond the threshold. That's very obvious. I guess I didn't find anything special here on knee. The knee describes the transition level control from below the threshold to above the threshold. So a smooth transition, we don't need to discuss this. The ratio, we don't need to discuss it anymore. Level detection timing. Let's see what's going on there. Dynamic processors needs to determine the amplitude of an audio signal and compare it to the threshold set by an engineer to apply a gain function. Dynamic processors need to determine the amplitude of an audio signal. That's what we were discussing before. And compare it to the threshold set by an engineer and apply a gain function. That's very nice way of defining what a compressor is. I mean, basically comparing your threshold versus how the signal it was. That's really cool, guys. Like you see, the compressor acts by a subtraction function. It's kind of like subtracting. It's kind of like your compressor. That's really cool. I have never thought about this from this point of view. Your compressor is not identifying like a threshold level. Your compressor is seeing the difference between the threshold and how loud the whole thing was initially. Like, it's not like the system is sampling how much the threshold it was. It's more kind of seeing like, okay, the maximum amplitude was this amount more louder than the threshold, something like that. But it's just like a quirk on how we can see it better. Different methods can be used to measure the amplitude of a signal. Okay. Peak level detection is effective for responding string transients, obviously. RMS is better for less transienty things. Certain dynamic processors like this guy, GML 8900, have very fast RMS detection settings. There are some compressors that have fast RMS and slow RMS. What would be the meaning of that? Well, I mean, imagine slow transients. Like I mean, I don't know, there are some drums that are like doom, doom, like Indian drums, and also electronic percussion drums that would be like that, some stuff like that. So whatever, there are some compressors that have fast and slow RMS. Fast RMS averages over a shorter period of time and is more responsive to transients. Obviously, when a compressor uses slow RMS detection, it cannot effectively respond to very short transients. Obviously, steep transients have less influence on the average signal level when RMS detection is on, because it averages over time. So what does it mean this? When you have a very harsh transient, wait, I'm reading here. Steep transients have less influence on the average signal level. Yeah, like, I mean, it's obvious. It's like a mathematical thing. If you have like 1000 number 8s and then you have a number 100, you can imagine that the 1000 number 8s are it's the RMS of our signal, that 100 level in comparison to all the 1008s that are there, it's not gonna affect so much the average of the calculation you're trying to make. So obviously, I mean, if you have a compressor set up in RMS and you have a transient in the middle of that, obviously the compressor is not gonna react. Now, the next section is more like the opposite of what happens from the point of view of the detector. It's like, let's visualize the output of a compressor. And before I deliver this, I need to run 1 second to the toilet to pee. So give me 1 microsecond of a micro Perez riff, and I'll be right back, okay?
Yeah.
Just give me a sec. Yep, sorry guys, I'm back. Let's go. All right, so are we there? Can I continue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next section is kind of like visualizing the output of a compressor. So let's go. Let's see what we can get there that is useful for us. Like, and I always wanted to do this in a point, like not only with you, but for me. Like I wanted to do this for me. To fully understand the effects of a dynamic processing, it's important to visualize how a compressor's output changes over time. So dynamic processors are non-linear, time-varying devices because they change the gain of an audio signal over time. I'm trying to understand now why they said non-linear. I guess because they are logarithmic. Time-varying because the signal is changing over time. Not a problem. Compressing the sum of two signals generally produces a different results compared to compressing the two signals individually and then adding them together. You feel that? That's a really good sentence. Like imagine that I have, that's a really important little thing. I'm sure that you know this and I'm sure that you use this principle. Like if you have, imagine, you record a bass guitar and you record a bass DI and an MD4-1 microphone. If you compress them individually, obviously it will sound different than if you put a bus compressor and compressor both at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's super old.
I feel that. Yeah.
Yeah. To observe the effect of a compressor of an audio signal, a steep function is used as the input signal. I don't understand that sentence. Let me see what it means, a steep function. A step function. I think that we're gonna get into some mathematical moment. Yeah, you see, like we're in some mathematical moments. On the real number is called a step function. It can be written as a finite linear combination of indicators of function intervals. We're gonna fall there. It will be so
Wow,
cool.
some mathematics.
Let's see if GPT can explain us this like quickly, because I have an intuition that that's an important sentence. Let me just give it a shot to see if GPT can help us there. Just a moment. Let me go here to, let me open a new private window and go to Iris. Let's see if not, if it takes more than 2 minutes and we don't get there, let's ignore it. But wait a second, let me just log into my Talking to AI account here. Wait. Tuk. Let's see if GPT can help us understand that, because I have a feeling that it would be important. No, I need this. Let me have a look, and let me just go here, home, and then right here to Dave. Yeah, no, to GPT-3. So let me just ask this question. Like, I'm gonna grab this sentence, and I'm gonna put it there, and I'm gonna just write something kind of like, please rewrite this sentence so a person who knows nothing about mathematics can understand it. Understand it. This sentence is about audio compressors in the context of understanding how compressors affect sound. The sentence is provided below. I think this is gonna fail, but let's give it a try. Let's see, and maybe it will be long. I don't know. Let's see.
What is Iris? This stuff.
This is have I talked to you about Noster or not?
You sent the message like a half of the year ago.
Yeah.
About this.
Yes. Well, they changed it. Wait, I'm not sure. Iris Bratan. It's like, can I explain you at the end of the lecture?
Sure.
Yeah, because it's I really want to explain you, and it's a long story, and it's some sort of Bitcoin related stuff, and you know I love that kind of shit. But it will take me a while. So let's see. This isn't right now. What I'm doing is just accessing ChatGPT from another way, so I don't need a VPN or something. It's just where is Dave? Wait, GPT-3. Okay, and why not? Yeah, let me try this. Yeah, now it's correct. Now it's gonna answer. Basically, all I'm doing is... No, it didn't work. To see how an audio compressor changes sound, we use a special type of sound as a starting point. Please elaborate. Further. Please elaborate further. Let's see if it does. Yeah, this thing of Noster. Okay, sure. So another compressor tool uses the memory range. To observe the effect of a compressor, we use a step function as the input signal. A step function is a specific type of sound that has a sudden change in volume from one level to another. By using this type of sound as the starting point, we can see how the compressor affects the volume levels. I still don't understand. Please explain as if I'm 10 years old. So let's see if do you understand? I mean, it's kind of saying that we compare by using another compressor is a tool that makes loud sounds quieter and quiet sounds louder. To see how it works, we use special type of sound that it goes from quiet to loud very quickly. This helps to see how the compressor changes sound over time. Is that sound used during the test phase of the development of the compressor, or is that happening all the time as I compress? You understand what I'm asking, right? To it.
Mm-hmm.
Like an audio compressor is a tool that makes it up. To see how it works, we use a special type of sound. And I'm starting to understand. Like what they're trying to say is that we use a step function, which it would be like a sound that we know how it changes over time as a dynamic range, and then it compares with how the compressor is going to work later, once it's in the wild, analyzing signals that we don't know how they're going to behave. Okay, so this helps to see how the compressor changes sound over time. And it's like when you turn on the volume of the TV, when it goes too loud. Okay. The sound that is used during the test phase of the development of the compressor is often a step function. Yeah, so I guess that they do it to calibrate the compressor. To observe the effect of a compressor of an audio signal, a step function is used as an input signal. Yes, that's what it means. So all of this thing goes together. That's why I didn't understood so well. A step function instantaneously changes its amplitude and remains at the new amplitude for a certain period of time. Using a step function as the input signal allows to illustrating how a compressor responds. Okay, I see. It's just like a very fancy way of writing something. It's like if you want to know how a compressor is affecting the sound, you should make a test by using a step function, which will be let me just write here, like, I want to add something here coming from this conversation from GPT. Please explain how, what does a step function means in the context of the conversation we just had. Send. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna add it to the presentation just so we can understand it better. Like, I mean, so I can explain it better the next time I deliver that. A step function is a specific type of sound that has a sudden change in volume from one level to another. For example, imagine a sound that starts off very quiet and okay. So basically, this was such a waste, not a waste of time, but I mean, it was such a simple thing. It's like, if you want to see how a compressor works, just grab something that is very dynamically and run it through the compressor so you can see what the compressor is doing. It's kind of very stupid thing, but yeah, that's what it was saying there. Let me just put this here. Step function equals this. So great. Let me just go back here, and that's it. Okay, cool. So, I mean, I guess that one of the things that we could do, or you can do, is to do this to test. Guys, I forgot. We have a great thing coming up. Yeah, there is something really important coming up that is going to be really cool. Visualizing the output of a compressor, an amplitude modulated sine wave. What you're going to see now a whole bunch of diagrams. An amplitude modulated. Let me just write to this guy one thing. The only time I can't is between 5 and 6:30 p.m. Sorry, so the director of the film is writing to me and I'm just answering quickly. Visualizing the output of a compressor, what you're going to see next is an amplitude modulated sine wave with a square wave modulator and a peak amplitude switching between 1 and 0.25, acting as a step function for the visualizations. Now we understand what it means. No sound waves were harmed during this experiment. So check this out. This is so cool. This is like, okay, let's see. Maybe you have seen this with Ilya Masaev in the past. It's possible because it's logical that he should have shown you this. If he didn't show you this, well, this is the first time you see it, and that's really cool. This is visualizing, looking at how a compressor is acting. Like you see, this is how the signal was. You should normally imagine something like a snare or something like something like that. Like, and then you have like, okay, how it looks when you have a long attack and long release. So you see, you have this whoop, right? How it looks when you have medium attack and release times. So this is how it looks when you have medium attack. So you see, like, more of the transient stands out. Something like that. Yes, that's pretty cool. And sorry, I got distracted for a second because I got a message from Oleg, from the director, and I'll describe this. I'll reply to him later. Let me just write him. I'll reply in a little bit. I'm in a lecture now. Okay. So let me rephrase this again. Which of these is more punchy?
Third one or fourth.
There you go.
They equal.
There you go. Like, and then
yeah, fourth one,
yeah, you get your, and that's a short attack and release time. I mean, really nicely visualized. I know you know this very well, but I'm really excited to see that visualization. And look, the next thing you're gonna see, guys, it's so cool. It's like, imagine this was, let's see, 200 milliseconds. He didn't wrote it here. Like, this is, imagine an analog compressor that has an artifact. Like it's not how it should be operating, but it happens a lot. Like this is how it looks when a compressor is sounding different than the other because of things like this. Like this guy, for example, it should be similar to this that you have here, to medium attack and release times. Like this guy is also medium attack and release times. And what you get is this kind of like, and it just happens because the compressor, we're going to read now what he wrote there, but it happens because the compressor has a different set of parameters internally. The same modulated 40 hertz sine tone through a commercially available analog compressor with a track time of Note the difference in curve from figure 4.4, which is, this is 4.5 figure, this is the figure 4.5, and this is the figure 4.4. No, this, I'm sorry, I'm crazy. Figure 4.4, yeah, figure 4.5. So this is so cool, guys. Like you are seeing here why compressors, how does it looks like the fact that different compressors sound differently. Note the difference in the curve. There appears to be an overshoot. Overshoot means like when something is overdone in the amount of gain reduction. It reduced too much gain in the attack before it settles into a constant level. A visual representation of a compressor attacks and release times such as this is not something that would be included in the specifications of the device. The difference is apparent between figures 4.4 and 4.5 is typically something that an engineer would listen but could not visualize without doing the measurement. Attack and releases curves of different compressors may vary slightly in shape. And this is a case of that. And so, I mean, just so you get it, like, I mean, you remember, I was always talking about the slopes and how and why. I mean, it's like, because the question is, guys, it's like the threshold was crossed, and then it's like, okay, now that the threshold was crossed, should I go full on ratio or not? Should the ratio start being applied gradually or not? And that's the design choice that different compressor designers will make, and that will produce artifacts like this. And that's why really it's not trivial to use an APN compressor versus an SSL. It's not like, nah, they're all the same. No, they're really not all the same at all, obviously. I know you know this, just it's very cool to be able to visualize it. Now we have another figure here, 4.6. So let me read this 1 second. From an audio signal on the top, this is the original audio signal, sent to the input compressor. A gain function, middle, is derived based on the compressor parameters and signal level. The resulting audio signal, the bottom one, from the compressor is the input signal with the gain function applied to it. The gain function shows the amount of gain reduction applied over time, which varies with the amplitude of the audio signal. For example, a gain of 1 unity gain results in no change in level, and a gain of 0.5. I'm trying to understand. I remember when I delivered the presentation first time, I was not so clear of what was happening in this diagram. Gain function derived from compressor based on the input. This is a sidechain. This is a sidechain.
It's not sidechain, it's just showing you the gain reduction on the middle one.
What I concluded when I delivered this presentation last time was something kind of like, this is how the Ableton compressor looks like, and it's just kind of demonstrating it inside the context of this book, kind of. This is an example of an audio signal processed by a compressor, showing the resulting gain function derived by the compressor based on the input signal. The gain function indicates the amount of gain reduction applied over time. This one, chuk. In the given example, the threshold was set at 6 decibels. Whenever the signal goes above the threshold, it indicates 6 decibel gain function shows a reduction level. Yeah, I think that it's just another visualization. It's the visualization that usually Ableton is showing you. Mm-hmm. It's just like, maybe when this book was written, it was not so obvious for some people and stuff. Okay, so we're almost done here. We're close to the end of this. Let me see. Oh, yeah, we're close to the end. Let's just go through it. We're almost there. Automated level control through compression. So let me see, try to give you things that are really new. Compression is often meant to be transparent, meaning that it shouldn't be noticeable. We use compressors to fix inconsistencies. How much compression happens varies from subtle to obvious, of course. Compressor is widely used in recording music, so this is so important, Dima, and it goes back to our first conversation. This is really important. Like, and it connects to everything you were saying, man. And when you were saying it at the beginning, I was remembering this and thinking, like, when does it comes in the presentation? I don't remember, but yeah. The author argues that we don't know how uncompressed sounds anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because we heard it so much that we just don't know how it, not you and me, but I mean the public.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, yeah, well, you got the point. So listening to acoustic music without compression can help us understand what music sounds in its natural state. Compression works by reducing the volume of a signal by switching it one at a time. Sometimes the modulation applied to a signal can be difficult to hear because it blends with the original sound. However, setting an extreme parameter can help you to understand what the compression is doing. If a modulation is not synchronized with the audio signal, it becomes more apparent as a separate event. What this means is that we need to time the attack and release very much to the BPM of the song, and because it will become more apparent. Compression can introduce artifacts, which are unintended changes in the sound's quality. However, in some cases, these artifacts are intentional and you want them there. So yeah, so you need to decide. Dynamic range controllers respond to objective measurements of a signal level. This is the beginning of the whole presentation, is how he ends the chapter. Like,
sorry, Leo, about the last part. Why, like, public sound engineers, like on YouTube and all this stuff, do not pay much attention about attack and release and the BPM connection? Yeah.
Well, I don't have the same impression as you. I have the impression that a lot of people pay attention to that. But I don't know, maybe I don't watch enough tutorials or something. Like, I mean, I remember many years ago, I went very deep into Michael Brower, and he talked so much about this. It's like yeah, and we discussed it when we made in the past together. We made a compression practice. This was like in the foundation or something, in which like compressor triggers in, and then the next transient needs to be already in a space in which compression already ended before the next transit kicks in. That's what I mean.
Yeah, maybe just I saw the wrong tutorials.
No, I don't think so. I think that if you dig, you will get there, like for sure. Okay, now check this out. How the author ends the chapter. Dynamic range controllers respond to objective measurements of signal level, like peaks or MS, rather than subjective measures like loudness. This can result in a compressor reducing the level more than what you want, because there is a difference between the objective and the subjective perception. The meaning of that is that we cannot compress just by looking at the meter. And that's what Sergey was trying to tell me. And it's really nice wrapping up of this conversation. It's like the last 4 lectures that we have had has been about me freaking out that there is a human mixing. Which is very stupid that it's like that, but it's like that. I really forgot that there was a human mixing, and I was seeing it all from the perspective of what the meters are saying. And that's a really bad approach. It's a good approach to start, but it's a really bad approach because in the end a person is listening. So let me see this prioritization. Yeah, I'm gonna skip this. I think I can skip this compression. Let me see quickly here if there is any miasa here that we can eat. They aim to avoid sound sources. Well, I mean, it's discussing like when you're mixing drums, for example, like, I mean, he's now not talking as the whole mix, but imagine like you're trying to make drums to be coherent and that the toms don't eat the whole drum kit. So obviously you work the balance of each one of your multi-tracks that of a one instrument that is recorded with many instruments. So if things don't get masked, so you compress the toms or something like that, so they don't stand out too much. Basically, that's kind of what I see there, and it's compromised. And wait, engineers try to find the best musical balance. It's a compromise because not every note can be perfectly clear, even with extension. That's okay. Prioritization is important of balance in the mix. Normal, I mean nothing new. Level control on individual sound sources. Blah, 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 blah. This can create nothing new. engineers aim to make this level changes transparent and musical, so the listener doesn't consciously notice them. Nothing is special there. Compression limited beside managing the volume of recording. Also can use to change the color and tone, obviously. When compression is applied to a mix, it helps the different elements of a mix blend together, obviously. And by the way, one of the reasons why things get blended is because you start this. I read this in another moment, in another book, like in something else I was doing. And one of the reasons why you start, this is really cool. Man, guys, if I can have your attention here, it would be amazing. Like just this moment of attention is a special one. You glue things together because you start aligning the crest factors of all the elements of the mix. By the way. Yes, if multiple instruments in a mix have synchronized changes in volumes, our ears perceive them as fused together, resulting in a more cohesive mix. You see, it's kind of like, imagine that you're looking at a room, things that are moving randomly, and then they start moving in synchronicity. So when you put a compressor on top of things, it makes the variation of the dynamic range to be synchronized in between elements, even though they have different dynamic range in between each other. That's a really
it's
cool
kind
idea.
of just easier for the brain to...
Correct. To get what the hell is going on. And that's why we say this glue. It becomes glued. It's so incredible that we have discussed for so many years stuff, and we never have gotten this until now. Like, it's very crazy. So, okay, well, this is we already know about this so much. I'm not going to discuss it right now. There is a conversation about audio expanders. You and I had a big conversation about audio expanders not so long ago. This was for another course, so that's why it's here. And okay, now, of course, we're not going to talk today about saturation. The lecture is about to end. Now, there are two things that are really important here. So I remind you that there is this website. I talked to you already about it at the beginning of the course, the ear trainer, the technical ear trainer. Do you remember, right, that we discussed?
Yeah.
Okay, now the technical ear trainer has a compression module that is PPS impossible. It's so fucking hard. I mean, it's not hard, it's very basic. It's very basic. But yeah, but I don't know why it's loading. But it's so difficult to do this. Maybe they are like Russia haters or something. I don't think so. I have opened it from many places. This is weird that it's not loading. Let me see if my internet in general is okay. Let me just go to, I don't know, like Google. Yeah, my internet is okay. What's up with the technical ear trainer? I'm gonna try. Let me try from Safari or something. I see that my browser is asking me to update, but I don't want to run that risk. Yeah, something is wrong with this. If this website dies, it would be so sad.
It works for me.
Ah, it works for you?
Mm-hmm.
And do you have a VPN on right now?
No.
No? Let me just try. I'm just so afraid of switching on the VPN and then losing the connectivity. Can you? Well, wait. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot. Whatever. I don't. Let me try. Yeah, come on. I'm gonna lose the connectivity for a second.
Okay.
You see, hello, hello. Tell me if it works. Tell me if it works. Tell me if I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're here.
You can hear me, though?
Yeah.
I'm seeing the streaming to YouTube. Everything is fine. Nothing fell. Okay. So, okay, guys. You see, next week also we will discuss the distortion trainer. Obviously, I didn't discuss with you the equalization and mid-side and reverberation because you're in a more advanced level, but the technical ear, the development of the technical ear course that I told you I developed is basically about this program, and it's really cool. But man, this is so difficult, guys. Like, this is so fucking difficult. It's like you load a file, obviously, and then you select here like some region. I don't expect that you will hear. Wait, maybe you do. Wait, let me. Wait.
Very quiet.
Yeah. It's normal that it's very quiet. It will go up in a second. It's because of the makeup gain. Wait, it's like Wait. Well, let me turn it up here in the output. And more here. So... So basically, yeah, you have to match, for example, the attack time. So what's gonna be? Yeah, you get the point. It's super hard, and you see, you can be working. This is really cool. This is helpful. You can be working just with attack time, just with release time, just with ratio, and of course, it has like only 3 steps. You see, so you have like fast, middle, and long, and I mean. If you guys practice with this thing, obviously your compression game is gonna grow a lot. So let me try to hear this. I'm gonna check. What do you think? Can you hear something or you hear it too shittily?
It's too shitty. It's unreal to hear in the Google Meet.
Well, you get the point. I mean, please come here and spend some time doing this because it's really gonna up your game of compression. I mean, I could demonstrate it right now, but you don't hear well. I mean, so you see, this was a 25 millisecond. I was gonna try like 2 milliseconds. I was wrong already. Let me go to the next one. So, this one there is a lot of compression happening to the transient. So I think that's 2. Yeah, I was right. Hey. Okay, next one. I think it's again 25. No, it was 2, etc. This is really hard.
You know, Leo, that it sounds kind of impossible for me because there is specific time interval that human can perceive.
Yeah.
I think you can train this with the training and all this stuff, but. I'm not sure about this. I just saw the one video or one how it's called topic about. Just read one topic about this, but there is like minimum time interval, and this is not so much like 1 millisecond or not so low as 1 or 2 milliseconds. It's.
I'm listening to you. I'm googling it to you.
Yeah, that's actually all.
Yeah, I've seen this information in the past. Wait, the shortest amount of time. Well, it was there, and I already went out. Let me just stay back there. According to to hear shorter tones, 1 second burst, when an extremely short burst, sounds like a click. A pulse 3 milliseconds long. Pulse. Wait, what is the shortest sound perceptible to the human ear? I guess that this one goes. Cool. This is in the sound design. I see, in sound design. Oh, this is the same answer. It's kind of pulling it up from there. It says 100 milliseconds here, but I don't know if that's the...
Yeah, I think it's less. It depends on a really large amount of factors like loudness and all the stuff, and that's why this training is so about compression so hard.
Yes,
because it's in some specific examples it may be not possible to response about the...
Yeah, but I think that what we can do is like infer something kind of like, hey, it seems like the transient is not getting squished so much, and that's the maximum we can do, or is getting squeezed less or a bit less. So all right, I think that does it for today, for our lecture today. One thing I wanted to tell you, I was gonna open a mix that I wanted to mention to you, and yes, there is something I want to mention to you. Wait, that song is called... there's one little thing I want to tell you before you go, and it's something that I was doing many years ago, and I started doing again, and I really like it, and I just want to make sure that you experiment with this. Very simple, very little stuff. Maybe you already mix like this. The song is called Na, something like that. Wait, I just don't know. The best, no, here it is. I don't know why he was not finding it. Here it is. Okay, the best, no, mix 1. Yeah, I need to finish this mix, by the way. Yeah, just really simple. I don't even need to play music to insist. Like, I told you that it happened to me a lot that I developed some principles before I became like so pro, and now I'm going back to those principles that I have developed instinctively. It's happening to me a lot. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I'm becoming more arrogant and I don't know, I want to like defend my younger self, or if it's because it really makes sense. And I've been coming to this conclusion after reading as much as I read this year, which was a ton. And I want you to experiment if you want. Like, I just suggest you to experiment to have, like, you see, like I have my drums, my bass, my guitars, and my vocals, you know, and here are my drums, and every final boss is outputting to a parallel tape, parallel reverb, and parallel and something that Andrew Schweppes calls the rear boss. The rear boss is a fancy way to call a parallel compressor to the whole mix. Now, I was doing it like by putting, for example, a distressor on the mix bus, and then changing the mix knob to be, I don't know, to be 50%. You understand? Are you following me there? Yeah, are you following me there? Now, in this mix in particular, I started doing something that I was doing again. You see, like, my parallel tape, parallel verb, and my rear boss are just like sends and returns, just like you would do in Ableton. I don't know if you mix like that, but I want to invite you, especially the parallel tape is amazing. Don't miss on that. Like, your whole mix, send it to output A of your sense in Ableton, and call your sense A.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you. Call your mix A parallel tape, put a tape machine there, and overdo it a little bit. You see, like, I have it like at minus 14 decibels, something like that. Minus 10 for the parallel reverb, and minus 6 kind of for the rear boss. Again, the rear boss is just a parallel compressor to the whole mix. And man, I don't know if let's see if I'm gonna give it a shot to activate this mix and show you how much those tracks are doing. But it's amazing, and I just wanted to invite you. One of the things I wanted to do today after we finish our what's the name, theoretical chunk, I wanted to invite you to explore this technique. That's how Michael Brauer mix. When you hear like Brauerization, like Michael Brauer does this, but with like 6 compressors or something, really. Like, he grabs like parallel compressor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he splits it like parallel compressor for low end stuff, parallel compressor for mid range stuff, parallel compressor for high range stuff. And here I'm being a bit lazy because I don't have infinite time and I'm not so much of an expert like Brauer, but let's see. This is quite not a great performance, so whatever. But, well, that was really loud. I hope it was not so loud for you. For me, it was super loud. Let me just turn it down here. Be careful, it's gonna be loud. So, wait. My waves plugins are off. Yeah, my waves are disengaged because I need to remove the flashka, blah blah blah. It would be long, so I will not be able to demonstrate it so quickly. You understand what I mean? Like, I have my waves plugins are off and they hold my balance. This Schweppes 73 is where I have the whole balance of the whole thing. You can kind of have a feeling here, even though it sounds pipiette, you can have a feeling of how much the rear boss is doing for me. I guess you don't hear anything. Maybe you can hear it on YouTube later. Parallel tape is amazing. Anyways, just wanted to... Do you use this technique or do you do it in another way?
Sometime I do.
Yeah, I wanted to reinforce this technique. I think it's great. I really recommend you to go for it. I'm going back to it, and I find it more clean. I mean, I used to think that it was better for me to put the like a parallel compressor, like a compressor in parallel on the router. But there is very big power in equalizing the parallel compressor to your whole mix differently than the rest of the mix. And you cannot do that if you have the compressor as an insert on your mix bus. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, super stupid thing, obvious to everybody, but I'm just going back to this technique. I really spent maybe 7 years away from this technique, and I'm coming back to it. because I read in another lecture I developed, I read this idea that how important it is to EQ individually your rear bus. And that's why I came back to it. And also the parallel tape thing is really, 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 really powerful. I want to also tell you that one little update that I came to a conclusion about something that it contradicts something that I was telling you in the past together. I am not using a tape machine in my mix bus anymore. I'm using tape machines. I see them more like a local thing, like better to have tape machines on the drums, on the bass, on the guitars, and leave the mix bus alone.
Why?
Did I show you my new mix bus? I think yes, right? Because I changed it significantly recently. I don't remember if I told it to you.
Nope.
You told us, but you didn't
Yeah,
show.
I'll explain you quickly. Very simple. My new mix bus is the massive passive EQ. It's like a colored EQ. And this guy, it's amazing. I really recommend you to find it, to try to go and get it. The Shadow Hills compressor by Plugin Alliance. The massive.
Yeah, I got this.
This is an amazing piece of gear. And right now it's basic to my mix bus.
Have you bought it?
Yeah.
I got it for free, bro. It was like a special offer like 2 years ago.
You gave me the same. You were the one who gave me that same thing.
Yeah.
I got it for free too, but this one is the revision A. It's like a special version. It's a bit.
I see.
Alexander Perfilev recommended me to buy it, and I went and bought it, and I bought it like for $25. It was in a mega discount.
I see. Okay.
Actually, check it out, bro, because they give a discount to those who have the other version. Like that, it costed me $25 because I had the version that, thanks to you, I got for free.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, so check it out and go to the website and check it out because maybe applies to you. And remember that both Ilya and I, we have international cards, so if you need to pay abroad, we can help you. If you don't
I
have
an international card as well.
Yeah, great. So, okay, massive passive, Shadow Hills. It's simpler than before, but what I'm doing is a bit more heavy. My EQ P1 as usual. Ozone 9 is just doing, it's my imager, like always. This remains. And then Oxford Inflator. I cannot live without Oxford Inflator anymore. This is the most important plugin of the last decade, I think. Like, I cannot live without it. And the limiter is there just like you see, it's not doing anything. It's like threshold is in 0. It's just there in case. And also I like a lot this enhance circuit of the Oxford limiter. So that's it. In the past I used to have a tape machine and a stereo compressor that was different. I was using the SSL G bus, and so I decided to remove tape machines from my mix bus because I don't know, I was feeling that things were a little bit unstable. And so I just wanted to tell you that update. I'm not anymore using tape machines on my mix bus. I'm putting them on the buses of each instrument. And also I'm using different tape machines for each bus. Like, I mean, Struder for drums, Oxide for bass, guitars, Struder, something like that, and vocals. So anyways, that's up for today. On Thursday, we meet at 5. On Thursday, we will have a conversation about tape machines, distortions in the context of mixing. And if you want to come on Friday, of course, let me know because I need to write your messages, or on Saturday, I need to write your names on the Prahatnaya there in Flight Sound. Okay?
Okay.
So yeah,
thank you.
That was really cool. I mean, I'm very happy we had this meeting, and I always enjoy meeting you, and I learned a lot. I hope that something useful came out of this to you as well, and I'll see you on Thursday.